I think Jasmine was welcome, and we're going to be streaming live from Facebook. We'll be definitely streaming live from the Facebook page, and looking forward to having anyone. I see a lot of people are waiting in the room to get in, so we'll just let them in before I get started. And we wanted to acknowledge Ambassador Coley. Want to acknowledge Ambassador Coley from the Bahamas. We want to acknowledge Leonid, who is our partner from Community for the Deaf, since our mission statement is to provide assistance for those with disability. It's with great pleasure that we have Leonid from Community with the Deaf. Hi, Leonid. And today we should be joined by an interpreter.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I just want to let everyone know we have an interpreter here for tonight.
Thank you very, very much.
We're at 5:09.
Right. So we're going to start our program. And I just wanted to welcome everyone to let you know about the Authentic Caribbean Foundation. My name is Andrew Sharp, and it's with great pleasure that we're hosting the third series of Caribbean COVID19 Update Diaspora and Tourism. Now, just to give you a brief knowledge on the foundation, who we are. The Authentic Caribbean Foundation, we're a nonprofit organization based here in Massachusetts, providing support to our kids with disability. And through this, we help through health and educational support. We provide 3 programs: the Learning Disability, Kids for Arts, and the pediatric equipment supplies that we provide for both our Caribbean American community here in Massachusetts and also those in the Caribbean region. We advance and advocate for our community itself also here in Massachusetts. And here are a few of our Caribbean American photos with our Caribbean American community that we provide assistance for. And these are various events that we have throughout the year. During the summer, we completed a great National Caribbean American Heritage Month, which was June, and we kickstart the summer with some projects. One of those projects was our back to school drive, and it has been very successful because we were able to provide 600 backpacks for youths and kids with disability. And we were able to distribute over 100 locally here in Massachusetts. And we were able to provide for some of the Caribbean islands, Bahamas, Jamaica, and St. Lucia. And we're planning to expand that program to many other islands. We're in the year of Census 2020. So we have been on the road during COVID with our mask, out at the areas that are low counted where our Caribbean American community are located, actioning our residents, Caribbean American residents, to complete the 2020 census. We've been at the train station. We've been at the market where they shop with our mask and our volunteers, letting people know, complete the census. We have also done some online training programs. We work with various cities to look at the response rate from our community areas and to ensure that our community complete the census. I want to make a brief stop and acknowledge Ambassador Insanely from the Embassy of Guyana, who has just joined us. One of the other projects that we took on, and it's very important, climate change. It's affecting everyone. We have been partnering with CREW, Community Responding to Extreme Weather. Thanks to the Better Future Project and the Bar Foundation, they gave us a grant to provide support to our Caribbean American community during the summer period for the vulnerable population or disability and elderly. And we were able to distribute over 150 ACs to our Caribbean American community here in Massachusetts. Here are some great photos from us, just to show you some of the great work, the smiles off the faces of our kids that we have handed out and their parents. Backpacks here in Massachusetts. We see the barrels loaded up, shipped off already, should be in St. Lucia next week, should arrive in Jamaica this weekend. So we have sent several barrels out with backpacks and hand sanitizer. And I want to give credit to the contribution of Francina Keene, who has also helped us and donated some backpacks for the kids within the 600 backpacks that we have distributed. On Friday, we started the distribution of the AC. Our wonderful Caribbean folks, right here in Massachusetts, we have over 150,000 Caribbean American residents living in the state of Massachusetts. But this city, the city of Brockton, which the grant was offered, we were able to supply right across the board, Haitian, Puerto Rican, Dominican Republic, Jamaican, various Caribbean nationals who live in this city. Free AC through the program that we partner with, the Heat Wave Assistance Program, where we have partnered with CREW to provide support to our Caribbean American community. We couldn't do it without our team. Teamwork make the dream. So I want to say thanks to Lisa Harper, who is our moderator, who is part of the team, Anita, Allison Rosario, which is located in Rhode Island, and Elisa Vignal Henry, who is also located in Rhode Island, Conroy, Charmaine here in Boston, Donna Fred, Dominique, who is also here on the call, Nadine Atkinson Flowers, Janaya Johnson, Pascal Crispin, and Dawn Curtin, who is based in Kansas City or Midwest, who is also looking out for Caribbean folks in that side. I want to thank you guys for the support. This is how we can reach the Authentic Caribbean Foundation. We're expanding. We're now currently working on the data. We're at 60% of the Caribbean American community data, thanks to our member Leslie, who is doing a great job on the data through the census, which is very important. That's why we're stressing everyone to take their census, because that's how we're able to track our community, to give the figures where they're located, providing support for our community. And we should be completing this data presentation with breakdown on how many restaurants, how many organizations, how many different Caribbean nationals living in each city area within the state of Massachusetts, and also broken down by the disability community, which is our mission statement, providing support to our youths and kids with disability. Lisa, I want to thank everyone for joining the Authentic Caribbean Foundation, and I want to acknowledge all the ambassadors who have joined us. Ambassador Coley, and Lisa, you could go ahead and just make the announcement on who we have joining us on the call before we head straight into Dr. Claire Nelson, who will be speaking to us.
Thank you. I just also want to mention another member who is actually on with us, Donna Frett, who has been with us for quite some time, who is a very, very important factor in our team. And we also have one of our volunteers from North Carolina on. His name is Shamar Clark, so just want to mention them.
Oh, Lisa, sorry we want to welcome the Honorable Premier of Anguilla, Honorable Premier Ellis Webster. Sir, we want to welcome you. I know you're on mute. You're mute. Premier, how are you? How is Anguilla?
Oh, Anguilla is beautiful, nice and warm. And thank you very much. Good afternoon to all, and I hope we have a good meeting. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It is a pleasure. And I hope that we'll be able to garnish this engagement and build a strong diaspora and a strong Caribbean region. Thank you for being with us, Premier.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Lisa, you will proceed.
All right, so you just did Anguilla. So do we have Mr. Hayden Hughes on? Housing and Tourism for Anguilla? Are you with us?
Mr. Hughes.
I'll come back around. Do we have Miss Quincia Gums-Marie from Anguilla?
Hi, good afternoon all. I'm here.
Thank you for being here. And please pronounce your name. I want to make sure I pronounced it correct.
You're right, Quincia Gums-Marie.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. From
Hi.
Aruba, we have Miss Ronella Chijinazokros.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hi.
You're the Chief Executive Officer of Aruba Tourism Authority, so thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Now from Antigua and Barbuda, do we have Mr. Colin James, Chief Executive Officer? How about Mr. Colin Denton? All right, I'm gonna come back around. From the Bahamas, do we have Sydney Corley here with us, the ambassador?
A very pleasant good evening to all here in person, and good to be back in another town hall with Authentic Caribbean.
Thank you. Beautiful tie. I like that tie. I'm watching. We also have Mr. Thompson, the Deputy Director General. Are you with us? From the beautiful island of Barbados, I'm not really being biased, Ambassador Noel Anderson Lynch.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Well, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. I love your backdrop.
Thank you. My sister brought that home to me back when a few years ago when we had our independence, the 50th. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now from Guyana, I know you're here with us. Do we have Mr. Donald Sinclair? Director General, Department of Tourism.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to mute my mic.
That's all right.
Yes.
I knew
Yes,
you were
Dan
here.
is here. Donald Sinclair is here. And thank you for the kind invitation.
Thank you. From Jamaica, we have Mr. Oliver Meir, the Consul General of Jamaica to Miami.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. One love.
One love, thank you. From St. Kitts and Nevis, we have Ambassador Dr. Thelma Phillip Brown. Thought I saw Dr. Brown here with us. I'll come back around. From St. Lucia, we have the Ambassador Anton Edmonds and Miss Odile DeVoe.
Bill is here. Nice to meet everybody.
I'm
Thank
here
you
as
for
well.
being here.
As long as Odile is here, that's what's most important.
Oh, thanks.
I believe you. I believe you. Thank you both for being here. So now we want to, oh, we have one last one. Almost forgot. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, my Spice Island. We have Ambassador Luann Galen Gilchrist. Are you there with us?
She'll
How
be
about
joining
Mr.
us. She'll be joining us later.
Okay, great. Do we have Mr. Richard McLeish, Director of Sales of US for St. Vincent and Grenadines Tourism?
Yes, we do. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here and for inviting me.
Ambassador thank you.
Is in a meeting and she'll be joining us late.
Perfect. You're here, so thank you. Thank you, thank you. So before we jump right in, Andrew, do you have anything else to say? I'm going to throw in Dr. Claire Nelson right in.
Proceed.
Thank you. Dr. Claire Nelson, President, Institute of Caribbean Studies, Washington, D.C., with that beautiful lip color. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good to be here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Andrew, for bringing us together once more in the third of our series, COVID-19 reconstruction. We began in June with a very robust conversation. We had 16 days of strictly conversation on the smart Caribbean future. And certainly on every turn, whether we spoke about environment, the blue economy, which we did the first week, whether we spoke about the creative economy, which we did the second week, whether we spoke about the health sector, which we did the third week, and then we went to invest smart Caribbean in the fourth week, tourism figured very largely in that. And our smart Caribbean movement, under which we are sort of bringing together some of the content of our work, looking towards the year 2030 and trying to get diaspora work to be situated within the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, so that even those of us who are just doing quote unquote charity also see their charity in the framing of the development programming. We're really excited about this first of many, I think, conversations and ongoing work with the diaspora role and potential, I would say, improvement or increase of the diaspora role in engaging in the tourism sector. One of the things we would like to look at today, as you talk about just what's happening on the ground now, how are you handling visitors now, is really how do we look at the, number one, the relief for the workers, especially young workers in the system. We had a session with youth recently, August 12th, which is International Youth Day. And we have been trying to collect statistics on how young people in the sector who have been displaced are going to be handled. We are partnering with CARICOM in the diaspora to do a youth empowerment workshop. I think maybe 30 people signed up as mentors with them. That will be done in January. And part of this ongoing work, coming out of that conference also, was seeing how we might reimagine tourism in new ways for the future. So some of the questions that are going to be coming up, I think, from the diaspora will be, how do we reimagine tourism so that we move away from the plantation tourism of the past and really strengthen the engagement and ownership of the people on the ground, so that we move away from large plants with foreign owners and think about new ways of locals owning, the people who used to work owning. How do we really put into place right now the issue of health and wellness in a new way? We've been talking about it for a long time. The Caribbean has done remarkably well considering all things in terms of the numbers. So how do we use that and leverage that along with the good food and nutrition, etc., that we have? And moreover, we've been hearing a lot about the use of agribusiness as a way to rebuild the economy. And so how do we really push the agritourism sector? As a matter of fact, in our Farm the Future conference on November 20th, we certainly hope we have a chance to engage with you on that, because one of the things we want to talk about, if possible, is the idea of having a special promotion towards the end of the year called Home for the Holidays, targeting the diaspora. The diaspora has always felt that somehow we get left out. We're like second thought. Nobody really cares to market to us because they know we have to come home anyway. But now there's a lot of uncertainty about whether we go home or not. At the same time, we have people who have had loved ones die, they haven't been able to be there, they have bills to pay, and they're kind of like, should I go, should I not go? So we're wondering if this can be put on the table for discussion with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the conversation of this Home for the Holidays, where at the airport or in the ministry somewhere, one of the ministry offices, you can have one place where people can go to take care of their passport renewals, their birth certificate renewals, their land taxes, all the things that they have to do when they go home to prevent them having to walk up and down and do things. They just go to one place, and that will certainly help those people who can't stay for more than 2 weeks but have to be in some form of quarantine. So that's one issue we want to have on the table. And finally, also, we want to see if the tourism has already begun to think about the reframing of the sector in lieu of the fact that it will take some time to come back to what was, to build up the agriculture, and some ideas you might have about how we can build on things like, I think Farm Up Jamaica has a beautiful model that they did some years ago of bringing volunteers back to Jamaica to vacation and farm. How can we build and nurture relationships like this? How can we build and really build more educational tourism, more volunteer tourism, so that those people who are coming home and not just coming home, because we can't go out and do things we normally do anyway for the next couple of years, but how can we use that time to come and do things that will sort of also help to ease some of the tension and stress that many people are feeling because of the fears we have about our countries that we love so dearly. So those are some things we want to put on the table for the conversation. I look forward to the rest of the afternoon going smoothly, and certainly very excited about Andrew's leadership in bringing us together. So thank you so much, Andrew, for your leadership on this.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to go right into the round table. And just for people who haven't been to our previous event, so that in this round table, each ambassador is going to have 5 minutes just to give a small, I wouldn't even say small, just to give an informative presentation. So the first one we have up is going to be Anguilla. Dr. Ellis Webster. Do we have them on with us, Andrew? Not yet, right?
Yes, he's here. The Honorable Premier from Anguilla, Mr. Ellis Webster. Welcome, Mr. Webster, Premier Webster.
Thank you very much again, Andrew, and the rest of ambassadors and Caribbean people. You know, we're one people wherever we are, and it's great to know that up there in Massachusetts, you still remember home, and that's something that we have to always look forward to. I would like to say, you know, our parliamentary secretary responsible for tourism and natural resources, including fishing and agriculture, seems that she will fit in well in this discussion, Ms. Quincy Gomes-Marie, the Honorable. I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19 itself, especially here in Anguilla. You know, we had 3 cases, positive cases, last reported March 26. of 2020. All have recovered, and by April 26th of 2020, we've been considered COVID-free. Our borders have been closed since March the 20th of 2020. So that really hurt our tourism product, because tourism accounts for about, with all its other affiliated industries, about 80% of our economy. So that has hurt our people, especially our young people who work in the hospitality industry. They have been hurting. And so we need to get to that point where we can reopen, but I'll let our parliamentary secretary speak about that. We have had a concerted effort to repatriate Anguillians who've been stranded overseas, some who went for medical reasons, some who were visiting families, some went for funerals, and some who were abroad for studying, wanting to come back home. And we basically, at this point, have repatriated 373 persons, plus 65 who went away for medical reasons, who have come back, making a total of 438 persons that we've repatriated or brought back home. And to this date, knock on wood, we haven't imported any new cases. So we still at 3 total cases with no active COVID in Anguilla, which is good. And we have protocol, and we have the person present a negative test 3 to 5 days before they come. We test on arrival, and we test 14 days after they've been quarantined. And we do insist on quarantining for 14 days in a government-approved facility. And that, you know, once person tests negative for the 3rd time, then they're released and can go home and be with their family. And so we still practice the hygiene techniques, which we find have been beneficial: washing hands, coughing in the bent elbow. And, you know, we have not been practicing social distancing because, as I said, we've been COVID-free for over 5 months. And we've been able to get away with that so far. But we do know that in this process that we can import COVID-19. If that happens, then we would definitely need to go back to practicing the stay at home, the social distancing. Our schools have opened. They reopened in May and closed for the holidays, and then have reopened last week. And that has been going well. Again, we are lucky to be in the position that we're in. But given the state of our economy, we know that we have to reopen for tourism, and that will be taken up by our parliamentary secretary. I do, you know, appreciate that you have this foundation that looks out for the disabled. I think that we need to continue to care for those who are less fortunate, or those who are in that position. And certainly, I appreciate that you have an interpreter. I'm an otolaryngologist, or ear, nose, and throat doctor, so I appreciate the services of an interpreter when we have persons who are hearing impaired. And so that to me shows progress, shows that you are right on the cutting edge, and shows that this foundation is certainly is beneficial to all. And I appreciate the time that you've given me to be here and to participate. And I wish you the best as you go forward.
Thank you, Premier. We appreciate that. And we look forward to working with Anguilla, with the disability community.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And we certainly would appreciate your help in that regard.
Thank you. Lisa, who we have next?
Next, we have Aruba, Miss Ranella
No,
Genoso
we're going to hear from the Deputy Secretary for Anguilla, because we haven't gotten an update.
So is that a quick question? When I'm going on my list, I could have just done that.
Trying to see if you're awake.
Like, I could go through the list. All right, well, you just did that, so bring them on.
Miss Quincia Gomes Marie.
Hi, good evening all, and thank you to Lisa and Andrew for the work that you guys have been doing and the rest of your team who's present with us today. I will take up my time and Hayden's time, that's the Minister for Infrastructure and Tourism, as he is not able to join us today. But I'm doing majority of the work as relates to the tourism reopening with his assistance as well. So he's asked me to fill in for him and create the story. In Angola, as mentioned by the Premier, we have a mono economy that's primarily dependent on tourism. And we've had, in one case, in one sense, the luxury of having only 3 cases and no active cases since April. But on the other hand, that was because our borders have been closed since March, and we've only been focused on our repatriation efforts. And recently, we're looking at how do we reopen the economy for tourism efforts. And that has put us in a difficult position. Because we've had no COVID, we don't have persons who are used to the social distancing, wearing of masks, and the different requirements that will come along with what will happen when you do reopen the country. And so we have a very low risk, a low appetite for risk in Angola. So it's a 2-pronged effort in increasing the appetite for risk, because we cannot exist in this bubble indefinitely, but also ensuring that we safeguard our tourism product. And on that end, it's about balancing the health needs and balancing the economy. How do we get the two? Because we can't just do a full-on opening, and we can't, as I said earlier, stay closed indefinitely. So what we have adopted in Angola is an application process for entry and a phased reopening protocol. And in that, we are currently in phase 1, which will come to an end on October 31st. And at this point, we are focusing primarily on long-term stays, although short-term stays will be accepted. And we have varying quarantine periods. So if you're from a country of what we call stay-in-place periods. And so if you're from a country with higher risk, your stay-in-place period will be 14 days. And a higher risk country is a country with a prevalence rate of over 0.2%. And if you're a country from a lower risk, that is a country with under 0.2% prevalence, your stay in place time is 10 days. And upon that, we have also extended our tourism products to attract longer stay tourists by providing digital work permits to be part of our tourism products. So it required us to make some shifts in what we ordinarily offer and how we ordinarily market our island. And how do we do so without compromising the standard, the expected standard of guest interaction and coming to the island, experiencing all of the services and all of the experiences that we have to offer. So how do we manage the two is really where we have been at. And right now we're working on our protocols for reopening in phase 2, which will include vacation bubbles. In Angola right now, all-inclusive hotels are illegal. But we have to now go to that model to facilitate the reopening. So it has been a matter of really redefining our entire product to satisfy the needs and do so in a safe way, where we can have our employees go on in and out of the bubble, but do not negatively impact the rest of Angolians who may not have any reason to be within the bubble, as in they're not working in the industry. And with that, we've had very strong protocols as relates to protecting the workers. And we've seen a lot of innovative responses by persons in the industry. But in one end, we were excited about the innovation. On the other side, we were cautiously optimistic, because what will that mean for the future of the tourism product? Because the tourism product exists in the high touch economy, but now it's taken on low touch economy characteristics, as in the digitalization of the process. What will that mean long term for employment for persons in the industry? Because, for example, one hotel has gone completely contactless, where you do everything through an app on your phone. You order food, you check in, you check out, you pay your bills, everything on your phone. So will this change the guest experience for Anguilla indefinitely? And that will be a concern, because that will mean lost jobs to technology. So it's about managing the expectations of persons within the industry, ensuring that, you know, persons who are working in the industry have the ability to supply for themselves. Because we've been shut down since March, it means that there's certain persons who would not have received a check since March, and we've had to go into government assistance. Now in Anguilla, it's a unique situation where there is no national unemployment benefit plan. So that would mean that this money would not have been monies that would have been collected over the years through different government benefits and then put aside. This had to be pulled from Social Security that is not necessarily made for that. And then the persons without Social Security would have had to get government assistance, which would not have been otherwise budgeted for, because no one anticipated that COVID-19 would occur. So we were in a very difficult position. And being newly elected, our elections was held on June 29th. We had to come into a situation where we switched governments and get up to speed with what COVID is doing to our budget and responded in kind. So it has been a very difficult time, but also an opportunity for us to do what we should have done from before, which is to focus on the other opportunities and industries that Anguilla can facilitate. And we're not known for our mountains or rainforests. So we have, in fact, Anguilla is actually known for droughts. So agriculture is very difficult, but incorporating technology in that has been an exciting way forward that many of our local farmers are dependent on us to do. And we have, but on the other hand, we've been known for the opportunities that we can have in the blue economy. So this has been a great time in looking at the options and diversifying the economy, and also diversifying our actual tourism product by, as I mentioned earlier, offering long-term stays. In that mix as well, you would have mentioned the census, the 2020 census, and we are also in the same position. Unfortunately, we have to push back our census because of the costing requirements to facilitate a census at this time, when we would have had to spend resources on other things to facilitate the different deficits in different areas throughout government. So it has been a time where we had to be innovative and quick on our feet, because while there would be investors who are very excited about reopening, we, on the other hand, have to safeguard the persons who are cautious. So saying, you know, I am a high-risk person, I'm over 65, or I have hypertension, or I have heart problems. If we do have community spread in Anguilla, this may mean my life is at risk. So trying to balance those two is where we have been. It has been a good time. Unfortunately, this evening, the Premier and myself cannot stay on the call longer than our presentations, because we do have a town hall to attend. But you know, moments like this are very important, because when you think of the Sustainable Development Goals, as was mentioned earlier, partnership for the goals is very important. So information sharing and learning of the experiences of other islands would have been a good opportunity for us to see what is happening outside of our usual research and trying to keep up to date with what's going on in the market. I think in the region, we're in a place right now, as was mentioned earlier as well, that we're doing well in terms of our numbers when you compare us to larger countries with more resources, but we depend on those larger countries that are not doing so well. So how do we, and primarily in our region, we depend a lot on persons from America. And that country is not doing the best. So how do we utilize this period to diversify even our markets in tourism? And in Anguilla, where we don't have an international airport, that then comes into the importance of the international airport and direct flights, and how do we develop our product and take this time to look at the weaknesses it has shown, and how do we use it as an opportunity to create new strengths? Because if we lose the messages that were sent very clearly through COVID, we will be back in this position at another time, whether it is another pandemic or a storm or whatever that will threaten our tourism economy. So it has been a moment of learning, a moment of experimenting, because there's not a lot to go on. We are all trying to reopen together. We don't want to be in a position where we reopen and have to close. So we have been cautiously optimistic. In the same breath, we don't want to be put in a position where we reopen with protocols and then we have an industry that becomes fatigued because we don't have an end date. So will one of our phases include, once you have a vaccine, you can come on to the island and roam free? Or, you know, how do we keep our persons engaged? Because if we do the protocols correctly, it should limit or perhaps even eliminate our risk of having COVID on island. And so would people eventually come to the point where they say to themselves, there's no real need to do all of the work that we've been asked to do by the Ministry of Health. So we'll slack off on this and slack off on that. And then we get to the position where we have community spread, but we don't have the health facilities to mitigate those risks and to respond to those risks. So it's been in a place where there are extremes on every end, and it has been a tightrope walk trying to find the balance between the two extremes at every turn. And forums like these really do offer a lot of information. And as I'm hoping that in our absence, that there's something that comes out of it that we can read to see what other countries are doing. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Before you go, because I know you both have a go, you have the town meeting. Is there a charge when people do come to the island, when they get retested? What's that charge? Because I know there's a lot of people watching who's going to be traveling soon, or at least who wants to travel.
So currently, in our phase one, person staying under 3 months, the fee is currently $1,000 for entry and $1,500 for entry. This fee for persons under 3 months will be revised. We anticipate it'll be revised and lowered. But this will cover all of the associated costs, because it was a very costly feat to get to where we are right now. And for persons traveling over three months, the fee for entry is $2,000 for the individual, $3,000 for the family. And this will include your extended stay, a digital work permit that allows you to work remotely in Anguilla, and all of the benefits that come along with that package. We are in phase 2, which will be on November 1st. The date slipped me for a bit. That cost will be publicized shortly, but I can't definitively say what the cost will be at that time.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both for joining us and presenting for us. And do know this is recorded, so if anything comes up, you can always watch it, but I'll definitely have your email. I'll send it to you.
Thank you very much.
And we definitely will be following up with our private meeting amongst organization and representative after.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And again, you know, I look forward to continuing this dialogue with you as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Premier.
Okay, next up, we're going to jump right on to Aruba. Ms. Ronella, are you there with us?
Yes. Hi, Lisa. Thank you. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for the opportunity. I believe I saw the Minister of for Aruba based in Washington, so I do want to acknowledge her presence as well. She approached me to basically share a little bit of what's been happening on the tourism front. with all of you present. I'm also joined by a colleague or business manager here at the Aruba Tourism Authority. So thank you once again for the opportunity, and I commend you for everything that you've been doing so far. Great job, keep it up. So allow me to share something about Aruba and how we've been doing amidst of this pandemic. And yeah, the title says it all, Road to Recovery. That is part of what has been the focus here on island. The Aruba Tourism Authority is the destination's marketing and management organization. As an entity, we were privatized in 2011, and part of that process also entailed a legally mandatory emergency fund. So we've been fortunate that we've had that as a buffer. We have that. I have to say though that it's the first time that we will be tapping into this fund, which is at our disposal as the Aruba Tourism Authority, and we anticipate that we will be utilizing all of the funds basically, and this will be partially used in 2020 and in 2021. What has been our role so far in respect to the pandemic? As the Aruba Tourism Authority, we are a member of the National Crisis Team and the Committee of Recovery and Innovation. Both trajectories are led by the Prime Minister of Aruba, Her Excellency Ms. Waver Cruz. We've also, in collaboration with tourism partners, produced a tourism recovery marketing plan. And I'll share part of what is in that plan with you. And this is basically what is in implementation at this moment. As the Tourism Authority, we've also assumed a specific role in respect to repatriation of our locals or of our residents. We closed our borders on March 17th, and I'll share with you our gradual reopening of our borders. But similar to Anguilla, we've also, since closure of our borders up until the point, up until today, I must say, we're still busy with repatriating people, our residents from Aruba, and bringing them back home. The ATA also leads the destination's international crisis communication. As the Aruba Tourism Authority and as Aruba, we invest in close to 20 countries around the world. We have investments in marketing in Europe, North America, and Latin America. And we have 4 offices abroad, which is led then by through HQ, headquarters here on island. Also, we've developed, we've assumed a leading role and an active role in respect to several protocols. One of these protocols is for the various business sectors, and this is what we call the Aruba Health and Happiness Code. We've developed that in a partnership with the Department of Public Health. And lastly, we've also led the trajectory or the project to establish the online immigration platform. So part of the requirements is that before you enter Aruba, you have to go to this platform and you have to complete several steps online. And I'll elaborate on that as well. The tourism recovery marketing plan is something we've developed in conjunction with the Aruba Airport Authority, the Aruba Hotel and Tourism Association, and the Aruba Timeshare Association. So it's a joint, it's a collaborative effort, including different budgetary financial scenarios, different marketing plans, GDP impact, etc. So we closed our borders on March 17th. And as mentioned by Anguilla, and I'm sure that many of you will mention this as well, we've since then also focused heavily on a reopening strategy, of course. We reopened our borders on June 15th for the neighboring islands of Bonaire and Curacao, the ABC Islands. On July 1st for Europe, Canada, and the Caribbean, and July 10th for the US market. It was a deliberate decision to open for the US market. If you can recall, on July 10th, the situation, including in the Northeast region, was a different one, certainly in terms of management of the pandemic. but it was a conscious decision, and we focused our protocols heavily on allowing for that, for the right mixture of actions to be in place, and for that balance of reopening our borders while being COVID-free at that point. So we recognize what the representatives of Anguilla brought forward. And we still need to decide and set a reopening date for our Latin American market, which accounts for approximately 15% or so of tourism to Aruba. So our protocols range from pre and upon arrival protocols. As indicated, one has to complete everything online prior to entry. What does that entail? We have testing requirements. So one has to upload a negative PCR test if you travel from certain areas that we denominate as risk areas. This includes several states in the US as well. If the area is not denominated as a risk area, then we do offer you the opportunity to also, upon arrival at the airport, take your PCR test. If one opts to do so, then we require a quarantine at your accommodation up to a maximum of 24 hours while you receive your test result. What is also available on the platform is a mandatory health insurance. So this is something that was also part of, again, the requirements that we decided to include as part of the package. And the longer you stay, the less you pay. However, it covers all hospital expenses, quarantine or isolation expenses, transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's part of the pre and upon arrival protocols. Of course, there are a set of protocols for accommodation providers as well. And these are mandated by local government. However, also being able to count with a variety of brands on island, several Marriott hotels, the Ritz, the Hyatt, Rio, etc. They, of course, also have their own set of protocols. And as indicated for the other business sectors, so think about retail, think about F&B, think about activity providers. For these specific businesses, we have developed then the Health and Happiness Code, which is a certification program. Once you complete your pre-check, you get a color seal. And once you complete your, the site inspection is completed by the respective authorities, then you are awarded with your gold seal, basically. So what do we expect? So we've been through the process of reopening already. I have to say that the reopening strategy, we consider it to be a successful one. When looking at the number of cases on island, yes, we've imported cases. Yes, there is a spread of the virus on the island as well. However, less than 1% of cases are attributable to non-residents. So a minimum number of positive cases attributable to those visiting the island. Can you please go to the next slide? I believe that, Andrew, you're controlling that. Just the next one. Thank you. So what do we expect in terms of recovery? For Aruba, it will be a gradual process, of course. We have 3 scenarios, an optimistic restart, which would lead to a 40% recovery of tourism arrivals by year-end 2020 in comparison to 2019. The conservative scenario would lead then to a 30% recovery of business by year-end 2020. So far, because we've reopened our borders in July, when we look at what we had on the books for Q1, when we add July and August to the results, we are now at a 33% recovery rate. So still looking at a minus 67% of tourism arrivals in comparison to 2019. Concurrent to this process, the government of Aruba also produced a new master plan for Aruba, taking everything that changed into account. and is also has different projects going on, including fast tracking several investments on the island. We are also fortunate that the majority of our airline partners do have service to Aruba at this moment, including our US partners. Everything pertaining to our processes, everything pertaining to what Aruba requires and why you should visit Aruba, everything is available on aruba.com. The next two slides show what is basically present on aruba.com, including also our health requirements. So I'm open for questions or any feedback, but thank you once again for the opportunity. And stay safe, everybody.
Thank you for that. You know, I really appreciate that in your slideshow, you also have the worst scenario. That was very real. That's reality. So I appreciate that. Like y'all are looking forward just in case something does happen again. What is the worst scenario for our people, our island? So I do appreciate that. So thank you.
I always prefer to skip that part, but it is included.
Thank you so much.
And Lisa, I want to acknowledge Minister Cross, who is with us. Welcome, Minister Cross, who is from the Embassy of the Netherlands representing Aruba, the Minister for Aruba.
Thank you. All right, so next up, I can't believe we're already at 6:03. Wow. Okay. So next up, we have from Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Colin James and Mr. Colin Denton. Okay. Don't hear anything, so I can always come back around. I'm going to jump straight to the Bahamas. For the Bahamas, we have Ambassador Sidney Cawley and Deputy Director General Mr. Thompson. Mr. Cawley?
Thank you, Madam Host, and good evening again. I will be focusing on a very tight presentation on the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Deputy Director General for Tourism, Mr. Thompson, will deal with the tourism aspect. From the outset, I want to congratulate Authentic Caribbean for the third in a series of these town hall meetings, which essentially cover the entire Caribbean Sea. To Andrew and Dr. Claire and all the team, you're performing a valuable service to the region, for which we are very grateful. In addition, Andrew, on behalf of the folks in the Bahamas, we want to thank you for the donations that was made to our physically challenged students. In the midst of the global pandemic, the Bahamas continues to fight strong and focus on strengthening and managing our public health responses, mitigating the economic fallouts, providing social support with food and employment assistance to our citizens, and preparing for a robust reopening of the economy. As preservation of life and public safety is our #1 priority, the government had initially spent over $10.8 million to deliver a swift and robust health response that included spending on protective gear and medical supplies, quarantine and isolation facilities, repair and upgrade to health facilities, especially facilities that were severely damaged by Hurricane Dorian. Air ambulance services and the capacity building for testing and hospitalization facilities. As you are aware, the Bahamas is an archipelago of over 700 islands. 30 of those have major Bahamian populations on them. And so the air ambulance is extremely important in the age of COVID. The Bahamas has received assistance from existing multilateral partners with PAHO and CAPFRA Our Ministry of Health also leveraged international relationships to ensure the Bahamas was adequately prepared to handle the pandemic. Bilaterally, the Bahamas received $750,000 from the United States in order to support COVID responses efforts and received critical and much needed health equipment from the Rhode Island National Guard. While COVID-19 is far from over, and while we await a vaccine, the Bahamas borders are open with very restricted travel measures in place, similar to those mentioned, without going into the detail. The borders are open, but the quarantine for 14 days is mandatory, and the travel protocol include uploading the Ministry of Health visa certificate, all of which must be in place before travelers are permitted to enter. Bahamas, the government of Bahamas implemented various committees and programs to mitigate the negative socioeconomic impact as a result of COVID. The National Food Distribution Task Force, which is a public-private partnership arrangement, the Bahamas Economic Recovery Committee, which is an advisory committee to the government on all matters relating to the reopening and restarting the economy. The Government Unemployment Assistance, which is a social service assistance program, and the Bahamas Continuity Program with the small and medium-sized business loans in order to keep the small and medium-sized business going. The government continues to improve doing business in the Bahamas model by fast-tracking the foreign direct investment process and investing more in digitalization. The latest statistics, as of yesterday, we have 3,008 confirmed cases, 1,391 recovered cases, 68 deaths, and 15,418 COVID PCR tests have been completed. Everybody is familiar with the 3 T's, the testing, the tracing, and the treatment. The Bahamas is now seriously looking at a new protocol of the saliva swab, which can be administered at the airport with the right setup and the right machine. The results can be returned within an hour. A protocol would be provided to make the visitor comfortable while the tests and the results are pending. And once the negative test is obtained, there would be no need for a 14-day quarantine. This is in progress. This is being looked at carefully. And if we can work it out with the providers, this will be a game changer for our tourism product. The other 2 areas really concerns Bahamian students in the country. Back to school is scheduled for the 5th of October, and the Bahamian students in the diaspora, particularly in Europe, Canada, and the United States. And so the Bahamas government and the various missions of the Bahamas around the world are doing what we can to assist Bahamian students and Bahamian generally in the diaspora. Mr. Thompson, our Deputy Director General for our tourism, if he is on the call, I know when you first did your check, he was not in, but if he's on the call, I would cede the rest of my time to Mr. Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see him. Let's just give him another chance. Mr. Thompson?
Yes. Is Mr. Thompson on? If not, I'll do a check and see if I can get him and get back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next up is Barbados. Ambassador Noel Anderson Lynch.
Good afternoon. How are you?
well. How are you?
I'm not doing as well as you, but I'm doing well. Just let me say thank you for this particular effort and all that you're doing to bring the diaspora together to ensure that our countries continue to progress and that we use the expertise of those gathered outside of the countries to be able to contribute to our social and economic development. Thank you very, very much, Authentic Caribbean. As it relates to Barbados, I'll start where most people didn't start in terms of how we have managed the COVID-19 situation. Barbados has had a total of 183 cases, 165 persons have recovered, and there have only been 7 deaths. And I believe that speaks to a Barbados healthcare system and a government that is seriously at work in terms of seeking to control any community spread that Barbados would have had. Our Barbadian healthcare system assisted with local expertise, private sector construction, a rapid built facility for COVID-19, close monitoring, strict protocols, management of all cases, rigorous contact tracing, and the cooperation and discipline of the public of Barbados has actually averted any community spread in Barbados. And it's something that as a tourism-led destination, tourism-led economy, that you can understand how important that is to our people and anyone who seeks to visit. In terms of Barbados, Barbados never actually closed its borders to anyone coming into Barbados. The borders weren't totally closed. From some jurisdictions, there was some restriction in terms of what happened to you when you arrived on island. That still continues because Barbados has had, obviously, there are different jurisdictions with different protocols as it relates to whether they're high risk or low risk. In the case of the United States, for example, because of the cases in the US is still considered to be a high risk jurisdiction. If you come into Barbados from the US, it means that what happens is that you take a test at the Grantley Islands International Airport, you administer the test. You wait at the airport for those test results. Once those test results come back within a couple of hours, what happens is that you can go to the facility that you have booked, and this only changed last week. You can go to the facility that you have booked, but for the first 5 days, you are restricted to your room. You can't leave the facility at all. You can't leave your room. And then within that 5-day period, you're retested. If you're then negative, you will proceed on to where you're going. If you're positive, what you will do, you will be treated in a government facility. Barbados has this particular issue has worked very well for us, has worked very well for the UK market and the European market, and now we've extended this to the US market. In the past, if you came into Barbados, you could only go into a public facility or into a hotel that was set up by government to be a quarantine hotel. Now you can go into your hotel if your hotel has been screened, inspected by the health officers, and that we are convinced that you can be isolated there and not get a chance to go into the public for any community spread. I will tell you that very succinctly that tourism is Barbados's business. One of the actual successes of this, if you can have a success coming out of COVID-19, is that Barbados has actually, Barbados has initiated what we were the leaders in what is called the Barbados Welcome Stamp. The Barbados Welcome Stamp allows you to come to Barbados to work for 12 months, at least for 12 months in the first instance. You pay US $2,000 for a single person, US $3,000 for a family. In the first 6 weeks of the program being launched, we had 1,400 people signing up for the Welcome Stamp. And every type of property is involved, from ordinary communities down to Airbnbs, down to villas, have been involved in this particular exercise. This is a strong initiative to mitigate the fall off in short-term arrivals, and it has been working for Barbados. The greatest form of flattery is copying, and a lot of people have sought to copy what we're doing, but we're all in this together. Finally, as a part and parcel of a new vision and a new restructuring and a new reimagining of our tourism product, what Barbados has done is we've launched the Barbados Employment and Sustainable Transformation Program, the best program for tourism, in which the government has actually put $300 million for hotel and tourism facilities as a response to COVID-19. This initiative protects jobs, supports tourism enterprises, and ensures that when we return to normalcy, that the physical infrastructure remains fit. This money goes into 80% of all those employed in tourism. And just let me say, there are 15,000 people employed directly in tourism, according to the latest statistics, and 32,000 indirectly. This will protect jobs because we will pay the government will pay 80% of the salaries of these persons involved in tourism for up to 2 years, only if revenues remain low. In addition to that, an enterprise that signs on must have an upskilling program so that when we do return to normalcy, that many of your workers or those who are in the industry would have received some form of additional training, which makes them even better prepared and more fit for purpose of looking after our guests. And the other component of it is a green and digital investment fund, in which once you invest in green technology, you invest in digitizing the way in which you do work, it means that you will have you have access to the fund. Let me say this fund comes in the form of preference shares concept, in which obviously it will be paid to government over time. The other thing that that is critically important is that Barbados has started to reimagine tourism in a different way. There is a digital component to our progress in tourism that is going to be satisfied through one, in the first instance, virtual concepts of being able to be exposed to the product in Barbados. This is a concept that we are pioneering, which we believe will add to the advertising and promotion muscle that we have for Barbados in the exterior. But the other component of it is there's going to be a new approach to using data analytics to actually machine learning and artificial intelligence to look at how we can actually look at how, where do we get our tourists from? How do we manipulate this big data to be able to produce more receipts for Barbados in the future? So our Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. is going to become a hub in which there's going to be a new big data analytics division and a data analytics manager that's going to look at how you can generate more for Barbados. I'll stop there and give others an opportunity to speak. But just to tell you, we are open for business. There are some strict protocols, obviously, to protect yourself, the visitor and the locals alike. But Barbados is open for business, and we look forward to seeing you there very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I did try to get my job to let me work from home in BIM, but I was denied. But don't worry, I'll be there soon. All right, the next one up, Guyana. All right. Do we have Ambassador Riyad Asanli? And if I pronounce that incorrectly, please help me.
Riyad Insanali.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Andrew. It's good to be here, and thank you very much to Authentic Caribbean for the invitation, and thanks to Andrew Sharp and all his colleagues for organizing this very valuable town hall discussion. Greetings to everyone in the Caribbean diaspora and everyone at home in the Caribbean. As you can see, I wish I could be at Kaieteur Falls, but I'm talking to you from Washington, D.C. It is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce Mr. Donald Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair is currently the Director General of Tourism in the Department of Tourism in the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce of Guyana. He is Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Guyana Tourism Authority, of which he was the founding director. He recently served as Chairman of the Subcommittee on Sustainable Tourism of the Association of Caribbean States, and he is a member of the Board of Directors of the Caribbean Tourism Organization. From 2006 to 2012, Mr. Sinclair worked as the coordinator for tourism at the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization based in Brasilia, Brazil. He has a distinguished record both as a practitioner and as an academic, and over a period of more than 25 years, he has lectured in tourism and has researched and written papers, articles, and opinion pieces for a range of refereed journals and scholarly publications. His main areas of research interests have been the semiotics of tourism, dark tourism, sports and community tourism, and cultural tourism. He spent 26 years as a lecturer in tourism at the University of Guyana and has worked at a number of other tertiary institutions in the Americas. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Donald Sinclair to give you a more informed presentation on the subject that we're considering, COVID-19 and sustainable tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Nsanari, for your kind remarks. My own first slide speaks to the place you wish you could be at, Kiteshore Falls, but unfortunately the circumstances do not allow. I want to thank the organizers for the invitation to deliver a brief presentation this afternoon on COVID-19, the tourism impact. You see, we are South America undiscovered, but in fact, earlier this year, a certain visitor discovered Guyana, a visitor by the name of COVID. And since that time, that visitor has been very reluctant to leave. Though we're doing our level best to expel that particular visitor. So we're going to go straight into some data. I really wish to congratulate Anguilla. I was quite astonished to hear that Anguilla had 3 cases, when our cases right now total, as of yesterday, 1,884. Listening to Anguilla, it sounded like the way we were, people not practicing social distancing and not wearing masks and so forth. But we will be there someday soon, we hope. This third slide gives a little more granular detail in terms of the COVID activity in Guyana. The list tells us, for example, the gender breakdown in terms of the confirmed cases. Those in home isolation, we see 510. A happier note, recovered cases, 1,265. Not so pleasant note, the number of deaths, 56, with 94 in institutional quarantine. And those tested so far, 11,052. The Ministry of Health is taking this pandemic quite seriously, and there's a daily publication of this dashboard. In terms of reopening, Guyana has a phased approach to this reopening. We are currently in phase 1, where repatriation flights are ongoing. Okay? And these flights would bring in those Guyanese, especially from North America and other parts of the Caribbean, especially. Phase 2, we expect to begin shortly. And in that phase, we expect to be able to facilitate limited incoming flights. For example, international workers and diplomats. So maybe Ambassador Nsanari's visit to Kiteshore could be facilitated in phase 2. In phase 3, limited flights open to foreign nationals. And then phase 4, we expect that to be the phase in which there could be fairly unrestricted travel to Guyana, especially for our visitors, tourists, etc. Then some airlines have given us tentative restart dates. Eastern, for example, currently flies, especially the repatriation flights. Caribbean Airlines, Suriname Airways, and American Airlines, are, as well as Copa, to advise us when they will resume flights to Guyana. See, the airport has been closed for more than a month and open principally for those repatriation flights. Aruba is expected, Aruba Air, expected to be flying sometime between October and December, with JetBlue not until next year. In terms of the impact of COVID-19, impact of COVID-19 has been quite harsh throughout the world. In some places harsher than others, of course. In terms of jobs, our survey done in Guyana revealed that 30% of jobs were lost and 36% of persons were put on unpaid leave. But that in total, about 92% of the jobs in the industry are under threat. In terms of businesses, tourism businesses, 37% of those have had to close. You know, the experts have told us that some businesses simply will not reopen. It's not something we wish for any business in the industry, but it's one of the painful realities that we have. 37% of businesses have closed. In terms of money loss, revenue loss, January to June, it is 21.2 billion, and that is Guyana dollars. And July to December, 38 billion Guyana dollars is the projected figure. Now, in terms of recovery, we expect that recovery will not occur with any degree of completeness perhaps before 2021. Though studies in Guyana and from other places have informed us that the domestic and diaspora markets are the ones that will take off first. That is why it was very heartening to hear Dr. Claire Nelson speak at the beginning about the Home for the Holidays initiative. Now that is music to the ears of the Guyana tourism agencies, because we are piloting a Rediscover Home project. Rediscover Home targeting not only the diaspora, but also persons resident in Guyana, for them to rediscover their own homes. Okay, this is part of the strategy. These are the two markets we have been told, and there's evidence to suggest that will kick off first, the domestic and the diaspora market. The diaspora market for us is what we call value-added tourism. Because with the diaspora, we get not just tourism, but also the strong prospect of investments. And in a meeting that I had with the members of an organization called the Guyana, Georgia Tourism and Business Authority, it was clear many of those who had been visiting Guyana or who had planned to visit Guyana had been doing so or planned to do so for purposes of investment. So we call it value-added tourism, and the point of tourism plus, the tourism plus investment formula is very attractive to us. And there are investment opportunities in the whole spectrum of businesses associated with the tourism sector. We're known as the land of many waters. Many of our attractions are water-based. So investments in the water transportation sector would be, I think, lucrative for them, even in the short to medium term. Investment in land transportation, in comfortable state-of-the-art land transportation. Resorts. The topography of Guyana lends itself to construction of facilities in some very green and pristine areas. So resorts in those kinds of areas are possible investments that the diaspora would be interested in, as well as the restaurant sector, and of course in taxis and so forth. Now, this recovery strategy, and this again is in line with the Aruba thrust of focusing on recovery. In fact, I think all countries hit by the COVID-19 would have embarked on recovery strategies. Guyana has a committee called TRAC, TRAC, Tourism Recovery Action Committee. We see that tourism recovery would basically be a function of a number of interlocking interventions. First, you have to deal with the COVID itself. There need to be the measures to fight the COVID. Yes, the social distancing, the wearing of masks, the compliance of the protocols and the regulations in place in facilities and other places. There need to be the medical interventions, of course, while we await the vaccine. There need to be those kinds of interventions. So the COVID measures are important. Just as important would be the stimulus measures that the central government would put in place, and the Minister of Finance last week did a budget presentation in which some measures were announced, some stimulus measures were announced to bring relief to many of the workers, not only in tourism, but in other sectors, really suffering the lash from COVID-19 in terms of cash grants, removal of value-added taxes on certain essential items, the reduction of the price being paid for water, electricity, and so on. Those stimulus measures would be important, as well as measures in place to assist businesses for their own recovery. Businesses need to retrain workers. Businesses need to have incubation centers and so on. So those stimulus measures will address those problems. Then, as has been mentioned earlier, tourism in Guyana, as in other destinations, needs to be reset. Tourism cannot be business as usual in the post-COVID environment. Tourism has to be responsive to the post-COVID traveler, the traveler who's going to be more health conscious, more health sensitive. So this is where wellness markets, this is where tourism experiences that value space, that value experiences, that do not allow for too much crowding and overcrowding, and innovative tourism experiences. For example, I think it was Dr. Nelson that mentioned the possibilities for agribusiness and agritourism. Guyana, of course, initiated we had an agritourism expo last year, pointing to possibilities that lie for us in the area of agritourism. That is just one of the areas that we hope to be embarking on as we contemplate an innovative tourism response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well, of course, as marketing that is very strategic. And targeting of the diaspora is one of those areas that we're going to be looking at. This whole idea of SAVE, scientific, academic, communication, and entrepreneurial tourism will be an area that we are going to be looking at. And of course, this recovery we expect to take off in 2021. So thank you for your attention. I've tried to stick to the 5 minutes, and I'm sure that in the course of the discussion, which will come after this, there can be further elaboration on some of the points raised. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinclair, and thank you, Ambassador Insanely. It's a pleasure to see you. Lisa, who do we have next? We're going down the islands.
You know what island's next?
Island hopping.
Jamaica is next, Andrew. I thought you were going to bring her in.
One love, Mr. Oliver.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The Consul General for Jamaica, based in Miami. He's much more better, having a better sunshine, but probably you have some rain down there. Right here in Massachusetts, we're feeling the 50s.
Yes, yes. We had some rain, especially on the weekend, but it's sunny now. It's so bright and sunny. Yeah, just say island hopping. You know, it reminds me of the good old days with Air Jamaica when we used to hop all the various islands. and had the opportunity of visiting each of the islands mentioned here. So just want to say what a lovely Caribbean product that we have. And happy to give a quick update. I think I'll come in under the 5 minutes. We just had our elections on September 7th. As we speak, Jamaica has moved, unfortunately, into community spread with COVID-19. Our borders have been open since June 15th, and we have had persons coming from all over the world. I think maybe a little under 150,000 persons have visited the island. So there has been different categories and protocols established for each category. For example, we have persons who live in Jamaica. You know, when they come, they are required to do a 14-day quarantine period. We have all persons, by the way, from the US, Brazil, Rep, and Mexico have to do a PCR test. So we also have the second category. We have persons, tourists, in what we call the resilient corridor, and that is basically the tourist area in Jamaica. So our visitors are required to, in addition to the PCR test, if you're coming from one of those 4 destinations, you're required to stay on property and enjoy your stay there. And then we also have tourists in the outside of the resilience corridor. And of course, if you're, again, coming from one of these 4 areas, you have to take a PCR test. And there's a health assessment done on arrival in Jamaica. And if at any time they feel that you need to be tested, they will test you right there on spot, or require that you will be tested. These persons in this category have to observe the 14-day quarantine. And there's a business travel as well, protocol set up for that. Again, persons coming from one of these 4 territories, PCR test. If you come to Jamaica, when you come to Jamaica, you have to do another test before you are released to go on the road. So if you can get back your test in a matter of days, then you can move about and go about your business, conduct your business. So these are the protocols. Of course, tourism represents about 35% of GDP for Jamaica. So it's a massive fall in revenue for the country. Prior to COVID, we were enjoying our highest level of arrivals ever. We had 4.3 million visitors to our country. So it's a major fall off. And so the Prime Minister has basically been saying, look, we have to learn to live with COVID. It's going to be here with us. So there's been a strong emphasis on enforcing regulations in all sections of the country. So wearing of masks, curfews, etc., are in full gear. And each day there's a daily update to the nation of all the cases. As we speak, we have 4,042 cases, 46 deaths, unfortunately. And so that there is a briefing from the Minister of Health, and on some days the Prime Minister will join in on that briefing. And those figures are also updated on the website for the Ministry of Health. Just generally, our tourism, Ministry of Tourism launched a new campaign, Jamaica Heartbeat of the World, a very exciting campaign. And of course, the overall strategy, well, before COVID was on new markets, new products, investments, new partnerships, and development of human capital, with a large focus on the gastronomy in segment, sports and entertainment, health and wellness, shopping, and knowledge. These segments are particular focus because when we do our analysis, these are some of the main reasons why people visit our island. So part of the messaging has been to come to Jamaica, feel safe, still enjoy all the amenities we have to offer. In fact, just 2 months ago, I had a death in the family, went down to Jamaica, and after observing my quarantine, my 2-week quarantine, we went to one of the hotels just to observe what was taking place, and of course to get a break. And I felt very safe, very, very safe. Before you join the line to get food or to go to the bar, there's clear marks as to where to stand with the social distancing. There's a temperature checks before you go in for food for the buffet line. And so throughout the whole time, I felt very safe. I mean, people were wearing masks, even on the beach. So I felt very safe. So I think persons can come down to Jamaica and feel airy, feel okay, enjoy Bob Marley music, enjoy the tourism product. And again, we have to just learn to live in the new norm with COVID until a vaccine comes. We just have to assume that everybody who comes beside us has COVID. Just have to assume and take all the necessary measures. At the consulate in Miami, of course, throughout the day, you must have on a mask. Throughout in the office, you have to always be wearing a mask. And in Jamaica, they're insisting on the wearing of masks throughout the country. So that is it. I will. Oh, and the last thing I want to say is that the diaspora market is also so special to us. Our diaspora has really helped to sustain us during this time. While everything is going down, our remittances have gone up over the last quarter by 18%. 18%. And so we really give thanks to all the persons in the diaspora who provide their hard-earned dollars to friends and family in Jamaica just to help during this very tough time. And many persons, as you know, in the diaspora, of course, we're going through our own challenges. And it's really a telling statement that despite all the challenges, there still is outpouring of love and support. One of the big questions for the new government, of course, is how do we diversify the economy so we don't become, we're not as reliant on tourism, and we look to other markets. So there's a lot of discussions now, taking place about, further investment into things like agriculture and, diversifying things like, we're heavily into the BPO market. And I was happy the other day when I called, my internet service went down, and I called Infinity right here I'm based here in Miami. And I called and I heard a voice answer, and I was quarreling. But when I heard it was a Jamaican voice on the other line, I felt so ecstatic. All of a sudden my problem disappeared. He was in Jamaica delivering very good customer service. And that's a big part of our overall strategy. One of the investment legs that we're promoting is the BPO segment. And we have had a number of companies that have come to Jamaica and be a part of that. I think all of us here in the Caribbean have a strategic advantage with that BPO segment, and it has been working very well for us. But we as a country continue to be challenged by how do we become less reliant on tourism, as much as we love it, and as much as we're excited about the top class product we have in the Caribbean. All of us individually, countries that rely so much on tourism, must look to other industries to provide the revenue streams that we need so that we can sustain ourselves, especially during these times. So with that, I turn back over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I'm kind of, I'm a little bit jealous because, you know, Miami would have been the time. I would have been down there pretty soon. But I understand next year you'll see me. Next year I'll be down there.
Yeah, man, just wear your mask and come down anytime.
All right, next up we have St. Lucia. Ambassador Anton Edmonds, and we also have Mrs. Odell. Or is it Mrs. Odile Devil? Please correct me.
So
St. Lucia? There you
yeah,
go.
all right. So it's actually Odile Devo.
Odile Devil. I
Exactly.
like to make sure I get people's names right. So thank
So
you.
let me be very, very brief because Odile is really the person that we're here to listen to. But I do want to thank the Authentic Caribbean Foundation for another invite, for allowing St. Lucia to participate. I also want to thank you for the support that you're providing as it relates to the National Council for Persons with Disabilities in St. Lucia and the engagement that you are involved in as it relates to our Ministry of Education. So thank you very much for that. Like I said, Odile will get into the weeds a little bit more. I mean, I think we believe that in St. Lucia that we have a little bit of a success story as it relates to dealing with COVID and addressing it, you know, from how we opened and the protocols that we have in place. That said, the protocols really and truly to protect visitors and our nationals. So this is really about everybody. And our nationals and visitors of obviously include members of our diaspora. And one of the key things, especially when you focus on the title of our engagement today, is we're very, and our colleague here from Jamaica sort of laid it out, we're very cognizant of the fact that our diaspora is going to be key to sustaining our sort of, I use the word tourism regrowth or sort of the industry stabilizing, because it is our diaspora that is going to, as we go through this period of time, it is going to be our diaspora who's going to smooth out the rough edges in many instances as it relates to people flying in. It is their commitment to coming home. We have the so-called high season coming up. So for all of us, it's going to be interesting to see how we survive that. But we also know that we have our diaspora who's going to be coming home, a lot of them who've stayed away for a while. And we're very much looking forward to them being the ones coming home, getting into the hotels, getting into sort of these designated facilities, and as they always do, supporting and buoying our economy. The major focus really for us, like from a policy level, sort of where I sit, has really been explaining our protocols to the outside world and how they impact travelers. Once again, this includes our diaspora. You know, it's clear to us. I mean, I speak to colleagues in Odile's office pretty regularly that the messaging is not just for the tourists. The message, I mean, because the tourist is everyone. Once again, it is our diaspora. So it's really getting the messaging out in terms of our protocols, where we are. And that does mean addressing the markets in general. So with the United States, obviously, we're very happy where we are in terms of what the CDC is reporting. We're very happy where we are in terms of the level, but there's a fair amount of education that we're all involved in, Odile, myself, Shania in my office, and others. One last thing that I sort of want to touch on for all of us in the Caribbean is ultimately our success is going to be based on the level of confidence that people have in terms of coming into the region, and the level of trust, obviously, that they put in place in terms of the protocols that we have. We have a bubble system that we've been tinkering with within the region in terms of more inter-island travel. And it's been interesting to see the ebb and flow of that because it indicates that we're at different stages in the region in terms of the amount of infections that we have, obviously the amount of deaths that we have. And collectively as a Caribbean is where we're going to have to succeed because very few of us are going to be able to bring airlines into the region singularly. I mean, for airlines to make money, they have to make money regionally. in many respects. So our success is going to be dependent on all of us being able to tackle this together. And one last sort of, it's not really a plug, but there's an advocacy effort that my PM has really been pushing, is really the desire and the need for the testing regime to be put in place, which is uniform. And when I say a testing regime, meaning that folks coming in to the Caribbean, that the airlines, that all of the carriers, that everybody be actively involved in getting people to take the relevant tests, so that when they come in, before they come in, we can in essence pre-clear them. We all have mechanisms in place. St. Lucia, we have our own protocol as it relates to that. We have, some of us have 3 days, some of us have 7 days. But when we start looking at COVID and its sort of long-term impact, and the fact that our success is going to be the airlines, the travel agents, the travelers themselves, everybody being on the same page. One advocacy effort here is really our ability to get the global community to recognize that testing is not a bad thing, and for us to get into a frame of mind where everybody is on board vis-a-vis the absolute need for us to have people tested before they come into the region. The cost to us in terms of a brand, and I say a brand, I mean, I'm using the term loosely, but in terms of one of us having infections from tourists coming in, or diaspora folks coming in, is detrimental to all of us. Now, I'll close there, and I really want to pass on to Odile. Odile, Odile, I must apologize. And unlike my colleague, Ambassador Insinali, I did not procure your bio, which is as deep and as wide as anybody I know in the industry. But Odile very much has been the lead for our North American efforts for many, many years, and I'm very much proud to follow her lead in terms of areas where we should focus, and look forward to continuing to work with her on our success in St. Lucia. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, and thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to run through quickly what we are doing in St. Lucia with regards to visitors coming in, as well as nationals with regards to COVID-19. The borders were closed to all commercial traffic, except for, I would say, cargo, as of March 23rd. We reopened the country on June 4th. However, we had more like charter flights. July 9th, we opened to commercial service. We had American Airlines started service on July 9th. We had Delta on the 10th. We had JetBlue on the 26th, no, JetBlue on the 18th, and British Airways on the 26th. Air Canada has not flown in as yet, so we are still waiting for this service to commence. We also have several inter-Caribbean island flights as well flying into St. Lucia. The protocols for coming into St. Lucia is similar to most of the other islands. You must get a PCR test before you travel, within 7 days of travel to St. Lucia. There is also a pre-arrival registration form that you need to fill out online and send that into St. Lucia. You must stay, all visitors must stay at a COVID certified resort. And these properties have gone through all of this, their COVID certification. They've been inspected, and they've met all the requirements by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. All of the hotels also must have a nursing station on property, so that when visitors come in, they're monitored. But before I go back to that, I think I've jumped the gun a little. You also need to send in your PCR test results. And before you travel, you have to get an approval from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. They need to confirm that you are actually staying at a COVID certified resort. And until you get that approval letter, you will not be able to board your flight to come to St. Lucia. And you also need to show your result actually at the airport as well. When visitors arrive on the island, they go through a screening process. They will be screened for temperature. They'll have a temperature check. They will ask them questions about, whether they have any symptoms and so on. If a visitor, unfortunately, do have symptoms, they will be immediately isolated, and then they will be tested. If they test positive, they will be transferred to the respiratory hospital where they will stay there until they are recovered. All the costs for that would be on the visitor itself. This is all explained on the pre-arrival registration form, which they need to agree to before they submit. Recently, we just had a visitor who had COVID. This was our 27th case for COVID, but they actually got repatriated via private charter. So right now, St. Lucia is COVID-free. We have no COVID, anyone with COVID on the island, and we have had no deaths so far. We have 16 hotels that are opened currently receiving visitors. We have 21 that are COVID certified. We have several tours and attractions are currently being opened, and some of them are already opened. Visitors at the moment, they cannot leave the hotel to go out on their own. They can do tours through the hotel. The hotel could arrange the tours for them. And we are still in phase 1. So we'll see how phase 2 goes, whether they may relax some of the restrictions, but that is all, dependent on what's happening in the US and the UK and our main markets as well. For returning nationals, they also have to have a PCR test, and it's a mandatory 14-day quarantine for returning nationals before they can be out in the community. On our website, which is stlucia.org/COVID-19, we do have various information there for visitors, for nationals as well, and visitors. We have a travel checklist, which tells you everything that you need before you get to St. Lucia. So there's no, like I didn't know I needed this unless the person did not check the website or did not call us or did not go through our, travel info St. Lucia information. For the persons coming in from the bubble countries, which is Antigua and Barbuda, Bonaire, Dominica, Saint Barthélemy, Anguilla, British Virgin Islands, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, Barbados, Curacao, Montserrat, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, they can stay at any resort on the island except the COVID certified hotels, which is only reserved for people coming from outside the bubble countries. But they also need to have the PCR test done within 7 days of arriving in St. Lucia. Let me see if I'm forgetting anything else again. Phase 2, we have phase 2 is scheduled to commence early October, hopefully October 9th, 5th or the 9th. So we should have phase 2. However, I don't have the details on that as yet as to what restrictions will be lifted in phase 2. The government repatriated 854 nationals to St. Lucia, and we still have lots of nationals returning as well. We also have a program called Caribbean, which is for our Caribbean nationals, where we have discounted rates at hotels for them. And this is something that we've had for the past few years. It's not something that's new to COVID, but it's something that we've been having for a while. Also, we have staycation, where our nationals, the hotels, and the tours and attractions, they give us discount rates for them, and then they actually, stay at the resorts and so on, and normally during the summertime that we have it. And we've been, just in case of our marketing, we've been in touch with, in fact, we've been keeping in touch with our travel agents. We've been doing weekly webinars with them in conjunction with our resorts. We've also been doing Zoom fun parties with them on a Friday afternoon as well, just to keep the engagement going with them so that they know that St. Lucia, we're still here and so on. For our figures itself, well, this year is not looking anywhere near as what we had last year. Last year, we had our best year ever, where we did over 400,000 visitors for the year. This was the first time St. Lucia hit the 400,000 mark. And hopefully, we are looking at 2021 to be a much better year for us. And I think everybody else is looking at that as well. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you.
Nice.
Oh, can I say one more thing, Andrew? I forgot to say that St. Lucia is now at level 0 at the CDC. So we have no travel restrictions, and we're number 2 on the State Department that we just got. Thank you.
Excellent. Lisa will leave in last but least is we're going to hand it over to Ambassador Gilchrist from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Ambassador Gilchrist, it's a pleasure to have you back with us again. And the floor is yours, Ambassador Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Good evening, everyone. I wish you all the best of health, especially during these challenging times. I thank Mr. Andrew Sharp and his team for the invitation to participate in this town hall today, as it provides yet another platform for us to inform the Caribbean diaspora about the actions being taken in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in respect of managing the multidimensional issues brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. In previous sessions, we provided you with a panoramic view of the impact which the pandemic was having in our country and gave you some insight into the actions taken by our government in responding to the immediate needs of our people, as well as into the plans and strategies for addressing economic recovery and development in the short, medium, and long term. To review, we informed you then that the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will act prudently to extend certain aspects of the recovery and stimulus package already valued at 74 million Eastern Caribbean dollars to further support our economic recovery. The pandemic has hit St. Vincent and the Grenadines hard. Tourism receipts may have dried up as tourism arrivals have fallen off significantly. The economy is now projected to contract by 5.5%, which is 7.8 percentage points below pre-COVID-19 projections. A drop in fiscal revenues combined with additional direct health and social expenditures will increase the fiscal deficit and financing needs. The IMF Executive Board approved the request of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for emergency financing assistance of about $16 million to help address the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The IMF support will help to cover some of these needs and allow the government to ease the impact on the population. I now move to the protocol. The protocol for the entry of travelers to St. Vincent and the Grenadines was developed by the Health Services Subcommittee of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, and was revised as recently as last week, September 7th. The aim is to ensure the safe entry of travelers to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a manner that reduces the risk of the importation and subsequent transmission of COVID-19 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our public health capacity and infrastructure have improved. It must be pointed out that the laboratory service in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment is currently equipped to handle the demand for PCR and rapid tests for COVID-19. To complement this, the Ministry of Health continues to receive support from the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, in relation to the confirmation of locally obtained test results. Now, I want to remind everyone listening that St. Vincent and the Grenadines remains the Caribbean you're looking for. In spite of the claims made by our sister CARICOM countries, we remain the Caribbean you're looking for. As the COVID-19 global pandemic rages, we continue to manage our response with aggressive advocacy on sanitization, social distancing, mask wearing, and quarantine measures for travelers. To date, we have 3 known active cases, and we note that 61 people have recovered. We have had no fatalities. All of the 64 cases recorded thus far have been imported through citizens and visitors originating in countries where infection rates are significant. There has been no community spread. The institution of a 14-day quarantine regime for travelers in March has been modified following the establishment of local PCR testing by the health authorities and the emerging infection rates in other countries. Currently, the third phase of protocols for travelers has established 5 categories: high risk, medium risk, low risk, in transit, and diplomats. High-risk countries include some in the CARICOM region. They include the United States, some countries in Europe. Travelers from these countries must have a negative PCR COVID-19 test result, and this test must have been done within 7 days of arrival. They will be tested upon arrival and must be quarantined for 5 nights in an approved hotel. These travelers will be tested before release from quarantine and will continue quarantine in an approved home or hotel for 9 to 16 days as determined by the health authorities. Travelers from medium risk countries must have a negative PCR COVID-19 test result done, and this must be within 5 days of arrival. They will be tested upon arrival and must be quarantined for up to 3 days at home. At home, and may continue quarantine up to day 14 if required. Low-risk travelers are divided into 3 categories: travelers who were resident at least 14 days in some countries, and category 2, travelers to bubble resorts / hotels in Mustique, Petit St. Vincent, and Mandarin Oriental in Union Island who arrive on private planes. And 3, travelers and crew who arrive on private marine vessels. Now, the nature of our country is that it is a multi-island state, so we have to be sure that we monitor our ports of entry appropriately and that the protocols are fully enforced at all ports of entry. All low-risk travelers must have negative COVID-19 tests within 7 days before arrival. They may be tested on arrival and may not be quarantined if the risk is assessed still to be low. Travelers transiting through the St. Vincent and the Grenadines must have a negative COVID-19 test within 5 days of arrival. They will remain at the Argyle International Airport, or they may spend the night in an approved hotel. Diplomats must have a negative test done within 7 days of arrival and will be quarantined for 24 hours to await local test results, the local test results of their fellow travelers. Some 30 sites have been approved for quarantine on the mainland and in the Grenadines and have met tourism service standards inclusive of health and safety protocols for COVID-19. Direct flights from Toronto, Canada on Air Canada and from Miami, Florida on American Airlines operate weekly on Thursdays and Saturdays respectively. Local and regional flights also operate for those who transit surrounding islands and include Caribbean Airlines, One Caribbean, and SVG Air. Updates to protocols and the approved accommodations may be accessed on or at Discover SVG Facebook page. St. Vincent and the Grenadines continues to adapt creatively to the fluid health requirements as they emerge and remains a safe and authentically Caribbean destination. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Mr. Richard McLeish, our Director of Sales, USA, in the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Tourism Office. Mr. McLeish will provide some responses to some of the topic questions which were listed. Thank you. Mr. McLeish, please.
Thank you, Ambassador. So good evening, everyone. Thanks again for having us. I'll just give a broad overview of where the industry is at now, and just important to mention, like Barbados, our borders were never closed. Planes stopped flying because of closures in other countries. So from a tourism standpoint, nationally, we've been focusing on stabilizing the local economy via various economic stimuli that include unemployment benefits, food security, and, for example, deferred billing in the state electricity company, among others. Direct flights have resumed, but traffic from our largest market, North America, has largely been that of returning nationals. As most Canadians and Americans are fearful of flying, and the requisite 14-day quarantine period is essentially longer than the vacation time most travelers are allotted annually. Direct flights from Miami resumed on American Airlines on July 11, and Air Canada resumed flights shortly after and are continuing weekly. Where we expect to see short-term gains would be in luxury travel to the bubble resorts or hotels on the islands themselves are somewhat all-inclusive, and that's where we expect to see some short-term gains. On the mainland and on Bequia, the largest of the islands, we have been, along with stakeholders in the industry, aggressively promoting staycations and get to know your country initiatives, which has borne some fruit. Looking forward, we've been focusing on the continued development of the tourism plant. At the moment, we have merely 1,000 rooms spread among the 9 islands. We have currently about 10 projects in various stages of construction that includes beaches with 350 suites, Marriott with 250 rooms, and a Holiday Inn Express with 93 rooms. By the winter of 2023, we should have increased our room stock by another 1,000 rooms. All this was precipitated by the construction of the Argyle International Airport, which is just over 2 years old. And prior to COVID, we were seeing an uptick in arrivals, both from the diaspora and visitors in general. So as soon as we get back to a newer normal, we expect to be back on track. I don't think there's anything much to add that hasn't been discussed already, and perhaps later on in the Let's Talk Tourism segment, we could add more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLeish. I just want to acknowledge another ambassador who is listening with us, is Ambassador Philip Spencer. I'd like to acknowledge him. And due to time constraint, we just want to acknowledge our diaspora company, and we will definitely be convening another private session with tourism representative and the ambassadors and ministers to go more further and see how we can provide assistance in this field.
Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, I promised to try to reach Deputy Director General Thompson. I wasn't able. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Unfortunately, he was engaged in another virtual meeting and wasn't able to disengage. He gave me 3 points he wanted me to make. It'll take 2 minutes. First of all, he wants to express that the Bahamas' best arrival year in 2019 of 7.5 million visitors was 18% above the arrival in 2018, and that the Ministry of Tourism is presently putting in place a program for the winter season that will hopefully restart the tourism product along with the airlines. We do not foresee the cruise ship industry before 2021. But he did want me to emphasize that the travel protocol is very simply, visitors must take a PCR test 5 days prior to arrival. They must visit travel.gov.bs and upload the negative certificate, the negative test results onto the Ministry of Health's platform 24 hours, at least 24 hours before travel. And they have to receive a travel visa from that platform before they will be permitted to travel, to enter board an airline. The only exceptions who are exempted are children under the age of 2, pilots who have not deplaned during transit, Bahamians returning from the English-speaking Caribbean countries, and children under the age of 10 departing from jurisdictions where testings are prohibited. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Coley from the Bahamas, for that updated information. Hello, Ambassador Willis Spencer. Would you like to say something with us, Ambassador? Glad to have you on the call. Glad to see you.
Yes. Pleasant good evening, so Sharp, and to everyone else. I'm happy to be able to break away from the rest of my schedule and pop in for a short period to follow the discussion. I look forward at some other meeting to being able to join the panel of presenters. And I want to continue to commend Authentic Caribbean Foundation for what you're doing, keeping our diaspora and other stakeholders informed of just how the region is dealing with the issues and the sectors related to enabling as normal a form of livelihood as is possible in the current COVID-19 context. And so I won't take up much more of the time. I think you would have been aware that I was not going to be joining your panelists this evening, but I'm happy to listen in for a while. I'll be here for about half an hour, and then I'll be pleased to join at another event on a later date. Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you, Ambassador Philip Spencer, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. And definitely we will be following up with a private discussion with our stakeholder, the diaspora organization here, and also the worldwide diaspora organizations in a private discussion to delve more into it. I just want to acknowledge some of our diaspora organization from the United Kingdom. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Rudy Page, President of MCW Enhanced Leadership. Rudy, go ahead. You can introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for that, Andrew, and good evening, everyone. And well, it's morning here now for me. So I'll just very quickly go through my presentation.
Not too much, Rudy. We only have 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm pleased to introduce our Diaspora Economic Tourism Strategy under the theme Experience Our Culture. And it's an integral part of transforming local communities. It's a multi-layered system from the diaspora delivery system. We've been able to focus now on the Commonwealth Caribbean and beyond, as we're two years away from the Birmingham Commonwealth Games in July, August 2022. Dr. Beverly Lindsay, Diamond Travel, we've been working together on a program called Return to Jamaica 2021 initiative to support Jamaica's tourist board's Rediscover Jamaica Heartbeat. we've also using the digital platforms. We've actually got together with the South African diasporas here in the UK and launched a digital campaign on Fresh FM Radio London called Durban KZN Going Global, partnership with Pili Mazari and Umlazi Township Tourism and Intercozo FM. This innovative digital collaboration has resulted in improved understanding, and with this focus on community economic tourism has actually created opportunities, including a fashion and culture show online, and using Caribbean diaspora expertise in the creative industries, hair care and barbering, community economic tourism sectors. And there are plans to visit each other's countries and experience their culture. So as the transformation takes place as regards to the diaspora involvement in the Caribbean and utilizing their skills and knowledge across the Commonwealth, there's going to be a greater emphasis on collaboration from within the diaspora and across the diaspora. And at some point, there would be some need for some alignment with the host countries in the Caribbean, which at the moment are still creating plans without the diaspora voice at the table. So taking one of the sustainable development goals, there will be a need for the collective Caribbean to reach out and partner with the diaspora, because you need that voice and the talent and expertise and leverage in the diaspora, which at the moment we're not getting. And the Commonwealth Games in 2022 is an important time for the English-speaking Caribbean, and including Belize and Guyana on the mainland. And so the diaspora, some joint initiative would be of great benefit to all parties.
Excellent, thank you, Rudy, and I do agree with that. And we're looking forward to continue our private discussion with our local representative and our ambassadors and the ministries and directors of tourism to just going further in how we can strengthen that engagement and see how we can provide some kind of investment. Thank you, Rudy. We move on to Miranda. Miranda from Philadelphia, or another partner, local Caribbean diaspora, Miranda Alexandra, president of the Caribbean community of Philadelphia. Miranda, you can go ahead.
Yes, hi everyone, good evening. It's good to see my ambassador join us for the first time, third round. I'm overwhelmed. I'm really happy that we had this again. We've pivoted really great. I'm overwhelmed to see the progress that has happened so far with so many different varying Caribbean islands and their leaders. So I'm from Trinidad and Tobago originally. My organization is Caribbean Community in Philadelphia. And so I love Philadelphia, I'm all Philadelphia. We are a World Heritage City. So this week, the Office of Immigrant Affairs from the City of Philadelphia is celebrating Welcoming Week. It celebrates the diverse immigrants in the City of Philadelphia. So I'm gonna make my presentation very short. I just need to hear a little bit of diversity. I have someone, we all thought about the same plan. I have a partner in organization, Judy Winter, Judith. She is from Panama, and I'm just gonna have her say hi in Spanish and just talk a little bit about her travel tourism. She's from Panama International Tri-State Alliance. That's the name of her organization. And she just wanna say hi in Spanish and in English. Okay, Judy, thank you so much.
Buenas tardes. Hi. And thanks, Miranda, for allowing me to speak for 1 or 2 minutes and just share with you guys what I'm up to. I'm a certified family search and travel advisor. And what does that mean is that I promote, engage, and educate people about ancestry and how to incorporate the tourism for people to go to different countries where they're original from or their ancestors are from and research it. So that is what I am promoting right now, to educate, incentivize our generation, new generation, to go back to where their ancestors came from in the Caribbean. So that is my purpose. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you so much, Andrew. Great work. And we look forward to that private meeting. I have a whole lot to discuss, but I would refrain at this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being such a partner and actioning the call for Caribbean diaspora in Philadelphia. We're going to move on to Violet Alden, President of the West Indian Foundation of Hartford in Connecticut, just down the road from us. Go ahead, Violet. Violet, you can unmute.
Sorry. As most of you may know, the largest immigrant population in the state of Connecticut is from the Caribbean. And so we have many associations and membership organizations and cultural organizations. The foundation's focus has been economic stability for these organizations and also trying to make sure that we maintain and share our culture, the culture from the various islands during this time of COVID. And so that's really been our focus. We're working with our governor, our state reps, and our city officials to make sure that the organizations stay viable, as there has been a large economic impact to a lot of them. And the other thing we're focusing on is the census. We're trying to make sure that everyone gets counted, especially our undocumented members from our community, because it's very important going forward for the financial stability of some of the cities and the services that they need in order to stay in this country. So those are the two things that we're focused on. And thank you, Andrew, for inviting us again. And hello, everyone.
Thank you, Violet. And we do look forward to having you in the private discussion with our ambassadors and the representative from tourism as we go further into strengthening that engagement and looking at investment solution. We're going to move on to Atlanta, where we have with us Jean Hibbert Walter. She's the president of Ruth Liebert Foundation in Atlanta, Georgia. Jean, you have the floor. Jean, you could unmute, Jean.
Hi, I am Jean, president of the Ruth Liebert Foundation. And of course, we're here to support the diaspora organizations. Particularly, we focus on the youth and what they're doing, especially the youth that are coming out of the Caribbean countries. And myself is here, and Laurencia Skeet, who is the International Outreach Director. She is located in Holland. And that's it.
She's on the call with us?
Yes.
Hi, Lauren, you could just a brief hello to her. I'm not seeing her. Well, we're gonna jump on to Karen Dunkley. Karen Dunkley is the state representative for the Northeast for the Global Jamaica Diaspora. Karen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much to everyone. The hour is late. We just want to reiterate our support for certainly Jamaica. Thank you, CG Mayor, in terms of the diaspora leaning forward to help diversify the economy, and for all of our CARICOM brothers and sisters and our Caribbean brothers and sisters during this time, that the diaspora stands strong and ready to ensure that our economies bounce back and thrive beyond resiliency. At this time, the Jamaica diaspora is focused on the census, similar to our sister in Hartford, as well as on voter mobilization. Even though we're not directing people which political party to vote for, we're certainly encouraging them to exercise their franchise and to vote. So we look forward to the follow-up meeting. We thank you as always, Andrew. You are the state chair for Massachusetts and for the work that you continue to do with your team. Thank you.
Excellent, Karen. And I just want to acknowledge all of the team members who are here. We know time is against us, and this is the time that we're going to close. So we're going to follow up with a private session with our ambassadors who would like to go into more detail, and also our ministers and directors of tourism to go further into how can we enhance the tourism. I know Dr. Nelson, do you have any word to say before we close off? And Lisa, do we have any other word to say? Anyone else? Dr. Nelson?
Yes, thank you so much. As you said, the hour is late. I just want to say that yes, ISS would like to do with the tourism directors or the people who are designing the products, especially around agriculture, tourism, the blue economy, new ways. We would like to see if we can have a conversation more like a design lab workshop format, not so much about formal town hall, where we can have a conversation about what the vision is for community-based tourism. As you've heard, the people in England are interested in it, a lot of diaspora people are interested in it. We have to kind of ensure that we create jobs at the base, and obviously that will tie into the agricultural tourism and other forms of tourism as well. So I want to put that out there. We are going to be doing another event around food security in October, a small event, and then in November, we're going to be combining forces, all of us who worked on in June are combining forces again to talk about agriculture in particular and tying that to tourism, and again pushing out the issue of how do we build out the home for the Caribbean, home for the holidays movement. So I'm looking forward to work with Andrew and the team to ensure that the participate in this design plan lab that we're thinking about doing or would like to see happen, to really put in place a structure and a program for building out community-based tourism, inclusive tourism. We really want to see inclusive prosperity. We really have to use COVID to reframe and reset the future. So we're counting on that and getting support for that kind of design process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson. Yes, for our next meeting, we're definitely going to try to like break up into groups and have like real discussions in real time to bring back, because so much time goes by so quickly with the presentations. So thank you. I do want to apologize to Leonida. I know I'm saying his name wrong. Are you still there with us?
Leonard, are you still there? And I know that some of the discussion that we're going to have in the private meeting is what benefits can be provided for diaspora who are here, who has their house and they want to invest back home and invest into the tourism product. Also what preferential rates and discounts are available. I know St. Lucia spoke about other packages. So we're looking forward to having this further discussion to talk more on how the diaspora can be a resource, strengthening the engagement with the tourism department, and let's not forget about the disability and the vulnerable, how we can include them into the tourism product, both for working in the tourism product and also what's available for disability. disability community. So we're really, really looking forward to going much deeper into a private discussion with the representatives who have joined us and our ambassador. We're really, really glad for the support you guys have given to us. We continue to champion the cause. We continue to encourage our diaspora to invest back home, not just monetary, but many other ways. And we look forward to talk about more on the master plan, the marketing budgets for diaspora initiative here, and many, many other. I know Marcus James is on the call also, and he wants to go more, but due to the time constraint, we're looking forward to a follow-up discussion with the ambassadors, the Consul General, the directors of tourism, the ministers of tourism, and so forth, so that we can go into more detail, in-depth detail, and how we can enhance, because COVID not going away, tourism is not coming back to its fullest. So let's chart a way for growth and development. And we here in the diaspora extend that hand out to all the government officials to work in that partnership to build a better home. We are happy to have you guys on board. We'll follow up with an email. Lisa has been amazing. The team has been amazing. We're looking forward to working with all the other islands to develop the disability community and provide support from right here in Massachusetts, and partner and collaborate with our other diaspora organizations throughout the United States, throughout the world. We see Rudy from UK. Unfortunately, Megan from Canada was not able to make it on the call, but we definitely look forward. So thank you once again for a successful third series of Caribbean COVID-19 update. It was very informative, and I know our Facebook viewers and everyone who has been listening have been able to enjoy and be updated on what's happening in their homeland and in other Caribbean countries. Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you for having us.
You said it all, but go ahead, Ms. Devo.
Oh, I was just saying thanks for having us. It was very informative. Thank you so much. That was my first one.
And I hope you'll be back for our next one in December.
Yes, I will.
Mr. Richard McNeish.
Pardon?
No, I saw Mr. McNeish was raising his hand. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to see you again. Thank you. Any?
Oh, I was just saying goodbye.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Ambassador Anton. Thank you, Ambassador Spencer. Thank you, Ambassador Dilcris.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ambassador Lynch. Thank you, Ambassador Lynch. Thanks to all the ambassadors for the engagement as we continue to strengthen. We appreciate it and look forward to the one-on-one meeting about the disability community that we're rolling on. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank everyone for watching also, and all of our board members and volunteers that's online with us. We can't do none of this without everyone, so thank you.
And thanks to the sign language interpreter and Leonette from Commune for the Deaf for assisting us to ensure that we're, providing support for disability community. Walk good and make good luck follow you, everyone. Have a very good night. Be safe during COVID-19. Have a good night.
Thank you. Same to you, Andrew. Bye. A pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.